Captain Jack felt the burden of the entire mission pressing down on him as he peered through his Norden bomb sight, hunting for the Dumbler-Poke aircraft works below. Behind him, more than 100 B-24 Liberators held formation, bomb bays ajar, waiting for his signal so they could let their loads go. He found it nearly impossible to focus while swarms of Luftwaffe fighters sliced through the formation, ripping into bombers with engines howling. Explosions shook the sky and the sickening groan of twisting metal filled the air. Suddenly, a thick cumulus bank rolled over the target, hiding it from view. Horner shifted to fly an offset run, recalculating with taut concentration as sweat beaded on his brow. That's when he spotted them directly beneath his bomb run, a cluster of Boeing B-17 flying fortresses drifting unwittingly into his aiming line. Seconds crawled by as his thumb hovered over the release. If he let go, he would most likely strike the objective. But countless bombs would also cascade onto those friendly bombers. Horner's voice broke over the intercom. "Abort! Abort!" The formation surged onward, bombs still locked. In the lead ship, Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth A. Cool's jaw clenched. Their opportunity had slipped away. Turning back meant cutting once more through the worst flak and facing German fighters again. Cool refused to accept failure. He would improvise. When the crews of the Vulgar Vultures climbed into the air, clear communication mattered above all. Every transmission through their headsets had to overcome the deafening roar of engines and the chaos of combat. Misstating a command or missing one entirely could spell catastrophe for the whole formation. We at Dark Skies recognize how vital flawless audio is, which is why we rely on Raycon everyday earbuds. Their strong active noise cancellation slices through distractions, just as those B-24 gunners needed to concentrate amid the roar of battle. When we examine fine points of aerial combat or listen to rare veteran interviews, that feature lets us shut the outside world out and focus on what counts: the historical facts. Raycon also comes in a variety of bright finishes, echoing how World War II squadrons personalized their aircraft with distinctive paint. You can show your own style by choosing lavender, forest green, carbon black, or our favorite royal blue. At roughly half the cost of many premium brands, there's little reason not to pick up a pair. With Raycon's 30-day happiness guarantee, you can always call off the mission if you're not pleased. Don't wait. Click the link in the description, or visit buyraycon.com darkskis to claim 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds from Raycon. Activated on July 8, 1943 at Clovis Army Airfield in New Mexico, the 405th Bomb Group began with no aircraft, no combat record, only orders and ambition. Under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth A. Cool, a seasoned and strict veteran of Europe and North Africa, the unit began to transform. Cool ran a tight ship, barking orders across cockpits and flight lines and forging his crews into precise teams. Formation flying became his obsession. He demanded tight, unbroken and steady formations. Even when green pilots struggled to keep their heavy bombers aligned, men like Lieutenant John Smidle of the 743rd Bomb Squadron tamed their machines. Smidle flew a B-24 he called the Beast, and the name was apt. Every sortie felt like a brawl. Smidle later described wrestling the aircraft. All limbs were moving at once, left arm hauling and twisting, right hand sawing the throttle, feet hammering the rudder, mouth cursing. Sweat pounded into my eyes. But sheer grit and perspiration weren't the only things that saw Smidle and his comrades through missions. It was relentless drilling in emergency procedures. Smidle remembered one tactic drilled into them: a steep diving turn at full power to shake off attackers and dive beneath the flak belt. He recalled, "The more we flew, the humbler we got. My only pride is that after a year of struggle, I finally learned to master it and brought it to heel." By autumn 1943, the 405th had moved from the harsh ranges of New Mexico and Florida to Langley Field, Virginia. The aircraft changed too. 64 factory-new B-24H Liberators lined the flight line. Every man understood what awaited over Europe: flak bursting like dark blossoms, Luftwaffe fighters diving with tracer streams, comrades spiraling down in flames. Still, they raced one another to see who would climb into their Liberator first. Each bomber carried a 10-man crew: pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, and 6 gunners, a compact unit that would face combat together. When the 455th finally left American soil, they went as a single hardened and polished group, but no amount of preparation could fully ready them for what awaited over Europe. At Langley Field, the men of the 455th Bomb Group finished their last preparations for combat. More than 2,000 officers and enlisted personnel were assembled, nearly 1,000 of them aircrew, all standing ready. In December 1943, the unit split into 2 elements. One would fly their B-24 Liberators across the Atlantic, while the other made the journey by troopship. Somewhere along the line they picked up a name, the Vulgar Vultures. No one could say exactly how it began, but they even persuaded Walt Disney Studios to create their insignia, a sweating buzzard, clutching a demolition bomb which was sewn onto every flight jacket. By spring, operations were underway, and on April 2, 1944, the moment arrived. Weather reports promised clear skies over Austria. The objective was the Dealer Polk airfield factory at Steyr, and Lieutenant General Nathan Twining called it the 15th Air Force's largest mission, yet an astounding 530 bombers, of which 430 would strike Steyr directly. 98. More bombers were assigned to strike Yugoslav rail yards and marshalling yards as a diversion. Timing had to be exact. The slower B-17 flying fortresses would take off first, bomb the primary target, and clear the airspace, after which the B-24 Liberators would sweep in a few minutes later. Any error in that schedule could prove catastrophic. Over 150 P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings were tasked with escort duty, rotating through rendezvous points so the formations would never be left exposed. Additional fighters were assigned to intercept at the most dangerous stretches the Yugoslav coastline and the final run over Steyr. At San Giovanni, Colonel Kenneth A. Cool's operations staff burned the midnight oil preparing the orders for mission number 18, takeoff times, weather briefs, radio frequencies, bomb loads, fuel reserves, and ammunition allocations. Before dawn on April 2nd, crews were rousted awake. They donned heavy flight suits, grabbed a quick breakfast, and filed into the briefing tent. When Colonel Cool stepped up, the room fell silent. Sternly he began, "The 405th will lead the Liberator forces into Steyr. This one's for me," and the men grinned, knowing the odds improved whenever the old man led the way. Dawn filled the sky with the metallic howl of turning propellers as crews climbed into their bombers, silhouettes of B-24s looming against the light. The largest bombing operation in 15th Air Force history had begun, and the Vulgar Vultures were at the forefront. The Germans were not surprised. American bomber formations had a reputation for lax radio discipline, and that morning transmissions betrayed the composition, route, and timing of the raid. Radar picked up the slow-moving clouds of bombers rising over the Adriatic. From headquarters in Braunfels, Yaktor 1, coordinated the response alerts went out across southern Germany and Austria, and men in Jag Division 7 near Munich scrambled to their fighters. From Weissenborn, battle-hardened, pilots of JG-27 readied their Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6S. At Krefeld, pilots of the 2 JG-77, the Ace of Hearts climbed into cockpits, and from Vienna, the heavy fighters of WE ZG-1 flying. Twin-engine Bf-110s prepared to launch. By mid-morning, some 374 German interceptors were airborne, circling over Austria, waiting for the Americans to appear. Ground defenses were formidable too. Steyr itself bristled, with more than 100 heavy anti-aircraft pieces, 88mm and 128mm, flak guns manned by veterans of the 24th Flak Division, famed for their deadly accuracy and ready to turn the sky black. The Vulgar Vultures pushed north through crystal-clear air. At 10:20 a.m., the bombers crossed into Yugoslav airspace. 2 B-24s fell out with mechanical troubles, leaving 32 Liberators to continue. The first contact came 10 minutes later over Nova Meto. A radio call screamed fighters 0700 High 7 Me-109s swung in from the right flank. Major Horace Lanford, serving as lieutenant colonel, Cool's co-pilot, watched them bank and line up for an attack on the lead formation, and immediately requested help. Red Dog 1, this is Lodge Cup 23. We are under attack by 7 Me-109s request assistance. The reply came, but it was tepid. We're kind of tied up ourselves right now, but we'll send someone as soon as we can. A lone P-38 Lightning arrived moments later, weaving through clouds to engage one German fighter, then another without regard for its own safety. The maneuver broke the attack briefly and the Messerschmitts scattered, but when the Germans realized the bombers had almost no escort, they came back in force. Me-109s, Fu-190s, and twin-engine Bf-110s, armed with rockets and heavy cannons, struck from all directions, driving hard into the formation. A gunner screamed, "Fighters, low tracers," stitched the air, and then the first bomber went down. The first loss was Double Trouble, a B-24 from the 742nd Bomb Squadron, flown that day by 2nd Lieutenant John H. Powers, Jr. and crew from the 740th. And Me-109 tore into Double Trouble's left wing with cannon fire. Flames engulfed the engine nacelle, and smoke poured into the slipstream. The bombers staggered, wobbled, and fell out of formation. From nearby cockpits, airmen watched 5 parachutes bloom in the thin blue sky. 5 men escaped, while 5 went down with the aircraft. There was no time to grieve. The Luftwaffe reassembled and struck again. Worse still, the bombers were entering the range of Steyr's flak. Black puffs of smoke detonated around them, punching holes in aluminum skins, shredding control cables, and battering flesh. At 11:15 a.m., First Lieutenant Willis J. Partardo's shoe baby peeled away, its No. 4 engine ripped apart by enemy fire. Smoke trailed the crippled B-24 as it fell behind. Alone and exposed, it became a magnet for prowling fighters. For over 30 harrowing minutes, shoe baby was chased and hammered until the guns ran dry. Partardo ordered the crew to bail. Parachutes opened in the thin air. 5 men were captured by German forces. The remaining crew evaded capture with the aid of Yugoslav partisans, and a month later staggered back into San Giovanni, gaunt, exhausted, but alive. Minutes passed and another bomber went down. Gremlin's Gripe of the 743rd Bomb Squadron, piloted by First Lieutenant Clyde P. Brunson, fell out of formation as flames curled over the left wing, and smoke poured from the engine. Flight Officer Richard J. Haney, who watched nearby, saw 2 parachutes deploy, and then a blast swallowed Gremlin's Gripe, and he turned away. From the nose of Lieutenant Colonel Kuhl's lead B-24 Group bombardier, Jack Horner peered through his Norden bomb sight, trying to shut out the carnage beyond his glass bubble. He knew comrades were being picked off from every direction, but his task was to find the target. The fate of the whole raid depended on it. Then several U.S. bombers drifted into his aiming point. Horner inhaled sharply. Frustration stung. Had it all been for nothing? He knew that turning back for another run would cost many more bombers. Then he remembered a detail from the briefing. The Steyr ball-bearing plant sat just a minute away. Not a primary objective, but in the emergency it would serve as a worthy substitute. Within seconds, the complex of Steyr Volagenbera filled Horner's sights. He steadied himself and released the bombs. The Liberators followed. Nearly 2,300 bombs cascaded onto the ball-bearing plant. A dense column of smoke rose as secondary detonations tore through machine shops and assembly lines. But the Germans were not finished. As the formation peeled away, the Luftwaffe struck again. At 11:45 a.m., enemy fire slammed into First Lieutenant Roy Resimond's Tallahassee. Lassie flames engulfed the bomb bay and waist gun positions, and the bomber fell from the sky. Witnesses saw 4 men escape before it vanished into cloud. German patrols later recovered 6 charred bodies at the crash site. For those still aloft, the retreat remained perilous. Me-109s and Fu-190s harried the withdrawing formation, picking off stragglers whenever possible. First Lieutenant William A. Arnold's Turbo Colossus of the 743rd was slammed by attackers. Technical Sergeant Roland R. Heath in the top turret emptied round after round from twin 50-caliber guns and recalled a fighter closing to about 50 yards. Pete sent him down on fire. Then payback struck. Enemy shells shredded Turbo Colossus No. 4 engine and damaged No. 2. The bomber shuddered, lost altitude, and fell behind. Co-pilot Second Lieutenant Richard Duscombe extinguished the engine blaze, but the Alps loomed ahead. The overloaded bomber was too heavy to clear them comfortably. Arnold ordered every remaining bomb jettisoned, waste guns unbolted, and pushed out into the airstream. Flak vests thrown overboard. Even one crewman's parachute was sacrificed. The aircraft climbed slowly and cleared the mountains by only a few dozen feet. 6.5 hours after takeoff, Turbo Colossus landed hard at San Giovanni Wheels, squealing fuselage groaning. But they had made it, and some crewmen dropped to their knees and kissed the ground. The price was high. More than 40 airmen were lost that day. Group Intelligence Officer Major Alvin E. Moons reported the gunners had shot down 27 enemy fighters, with 17 more listed as probable. The ball-bearing plant was devastated. Over 90% of the facility put out of operation. Once again, against staggering odds, the Vulgar Vultures had accomplished their mission. A hearty salute from Dark Skies to Raycon for flying with us today and enhancing our audio experiences with their everyday earbuds, delivering clear sound when it matters most. Remember, you can get 20% off by clicking the link in the description or visiting buyraycon.com